For a split second, I actually thought that Canada was entertaining the idea of becoming the 51st state. But in all honesty, although there's a lot of people on social media who are really egging this joke on, it is damn near impossible for that to happen for a variety of reasons. So I don't really want to talk about whether or not Canada will become the 51st state, because I truly believe that that won't happen, but I do want to talk about why so many Canadians are actually intrigued by this idea, especially from a real estate perspective. What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe, as we're always putting out real estate content to help you scale in real estate in the US. So US investing from the Canadian perspective has a lot of appealing factors. One of the key appealing factors has a lot to do with price point. You see, when Canadians look at US real estate, and you can find properties anywhere from like $50,000, and we're talking about some real like dumps, it's fine, right? That's not the point. But the thing is that if you really compare it to what you can get in Canada, it's like night and day, right? Canada has some of the most expensive real estate you can ever imagine. You see it all across social media. We have Canadian real estate versus the world. You have castles in Europe coming up against bungalows in the Greater Toronto area or in the outskirts of Vancouver, and it's ridiculous. We all know this, we understand it, and somehow we've come to accept this. But for those of us who are like, we want to make real estate investing work for us being the key thing as opposed to us working for it, we need to find other markets to make this work. And the whole thing about being a good strategist and investor is that when the market is not conducive to your needs, you change the market. And for many of us, that means investing in the US. So that's why a lot of us are looking over there. And when we're comparing the price points, it really also has to do with the traditional way of getting into real estate. You see, not everybody wants to be very sophisticated about it, go raise capital, go and, borrow money left, right, and center, and then just kind of wheel and deal and make it work. Some of us just want to be able to do it the good old-fashioned way. Go to work, save some money, buy a house. Maybe not buy a house for yourself to live in as your first property, even though that would be the best thing in a healthy economy to be able to do, but buy an investment property. Lots of people did that back in the day, but now it damn seems near impossible. I mean, we hear about it all the time where people talk about it as if though it is nepotism, as if though home ownership today is so dependent on your parents having owned a home. If they didn't, you're pretty much SOL. Forget about it. At least in Canada, you're not owning a home, which is why a lot of people are now looking to the US at least to get their foot in the door and own property so that they can take advantage of riding the real estate wave instead of chasing it. Where now Canadians, instead of looking at the Canadian flag and saying, yes, this place is going to give me all the opportunities I want, now they're looking at the American flag saying, hey, the grass is greener over here and maybe it's giving me a little more opportunity. And we're not talking about the differences between how Canadians like to live and how Americans like to live. We know there's differences, but from an investment perspective, just the investment perspective, it makes a profound difference. Let's just talk numbers, okay? If you want to buy a house in any one of the densely populated areas, not even the densely populated areas, the outskirts of the densely populated cities, Toronto, Vancouver, take any one of the provinces in the center where you have like the denser areas, you're looking at about $500,000, where comparatively you can buy turnkey rental properties in many parts of the states that will rent out for a couple $100,000, and they will cash flow positive without you having to do very much to them. And now it seems like if you want to cash flow positive in Canada, you got to do all sorts of things to them. So it's not just a down payment that you need, you also need that rental money. And you know how it is getting renovations done in Canada. If you're not a contractor, you're gonna have a fun time. Did you know that the average household savings of Canadians is about $5,000? And it gets a little bit higher when you go into some of the city centers, but this also takes into account some people putting money into RSPs. This takes into account when the government is also going to match your money. This isn't just straight savings, right? That's not necessarily money that Canadians have access to. So if you want to buy a $500,000 home, you're looking at having to save $100,000. If you're doing this on your own, you're going to be saving for a long time. And that goes back to the idea of chasing the market instead of riding the market. Whereas in the States, if you can buy an investment property for about $100,000 to $150,000, I know it's USD, and I know the idea of USD feels a little more daunting, especially as we see the Canadian dollar plummeting. I'm being dramatic, but it is going down. And it's not just that it's going down, it is getting harder, not just for the conversion, but also in the earning part. Let's take the declining Canadian dollar out of the equation just for a second here. 100,000 USD is 144,000 Canadian dollars. If you're buying a house for 150,000 USD or 200,000 USD, that's about 270,000 Canadian dollars. It's not exactly a small amount, but it's a lot more achievable to buy that property than it is to buy property in Canada that, let's be honest, won't cash flow positive. But it's not just the real estate that Canadians are looking at the US for to hedge their future. They are also looking to the US dollar itself because of the way things are going in Canada, specifically when it goes to inflation. I mean, I think I talked about this before. I talk about it so much, but it is crazy to me how Canadians who are working, like if you're making $100,000 and you're like, hey, I need about $20 or $30 or $40,000 more in order to live comfortably. You're no longer talking about just earning $20, $30, $40,000 or more. You're talking about earning twice that in order to have that money clear, because we're taxed at 45% in those higher tax brackets. You're earning 55 cents on the dollar. And on top of that, inflation is something around 7%. You're losing money like crazy. Your buying power is going down. You're working for a currency that is no longer serving you the way you want it to. And not to brag about this, but I started investing into US real estate a couple of years ago. Those USD that I'm earning in rent is definitely paying off today. I am definitely happy for my daily living expenses to have had those investments hedge against the Canadian market. But this goes to the point of why I understand why so many Canadians are looking at this idea of becoming the 51st state and are kind of excited about it. I mean, I know Canadians are looking for change. I know Canadians at large are looking for things to be shaken up in a better way, right? Because people are unhappy. People are unhappy with the healthcare system. People are unhappy with the infrastructure. People are unhappy with so many things in Canada right now. It's causing people to just look elsewhere for the future. I mean, Canada does this very interesting thing where they try to make their GDP, in fact, look healthier than it is. But there's other metrics that ought to be considered too. Like if you look at the surveys that have to do with happiness or that have to do with future outlook, these are also going to be some key leading indicators to the future of the country, because when you look at countries that show you about how the younger population feels about the future of their country, these are often very strong indicators to how the country is going to do, because these type of things, especially in the younger generation, carry on. Hopeful feelings about the future are declining. Specifically in the summer of 2021, 68.3% of these middle-aged adults reported having a positive view of the future, the highest proportion across all age. By early 2044, this population fell to 59.7%. So almost 10% decline in feeling hopeful about the future. And this is for middle-aged people. For the younger age group, this statistic is far lower. A negligible amount of younger people feel like they will ever own their own home in Canada. Because I really want to bring it back to some of the options that real estate investors are considering in a realistic manner that are actually going to positively affect their endeavors, their financial endeavors, their growth, right? And it's not just your financial endeavors, because it's ultimately also what you want for your future in terms of how you want to live, because your financial disposition is going to strongly lead your lifestyle endeavors. And unfortunately, the newest effective Canadian real estate investing strategy is invest in the US. It's just a fact of the matter, and it is possible. You can own US property as a Canadian, and it does make a lot more sense. We know it because we want to buy sensible properties that cash flow and will earn us money today. So if you want to know how you can do that too, definitely make sure to join our community. And if you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and I will see you on the next one.